On Saturday, February 11th, 2023, Brianna Ghey left her home in the Birchwood area of town at around 12:45 p.m. Her Ring doorbell camera captures her as she leaves her home for the last time. Brianna is seen walking and texting. She texts her mom to tell her that she's leaving to meet up with Scarlett, and she also lets Scarlett know that she's going to take the bus. Scarlett eerily responds by telling Brianna to book a single ticket instead of a return, perhaps indicative of the fact that they weren't planning on letting Brianna return back home. At 1:41, Brianna then texted her mom again, telling her that she was on the bus by herself and that she was scared, her anxiety clearly getting the better of her, yet she faced her fears head-on. She arrived at her bus stop a short while later, and CCTV from the bus captures Scarlett and Eddie waiting at the bus stop. Scarlett goes up to meet Brianna while Eddie hangs back a bit. Up until now, Brianna has never met Eddie before, but she trusted him because he was a friend of Scarlett's. The three of them are then seen walking towards Linear Park. Various shops, restaurants, and doorbell cameras captured the three as they made their way to the park, and several witnesses actually remembered Brianna due to her distinctive white outfit. The three got to the park just after 2 p.m., where there were no CCTV cameras. Less than an hour later, Brianna was dead. Brianna Ghey was 16 years old when her life ended, but her story has continued to echo far beyond the quiet paths of a park in northern England. Because what happened to her was not just a crime, it was a collision of vulnerability, manipulation, online influence, and a chilling lack of empathy that shocked an entire country. Brianna lived in Warrington, Cheshire, and to friends she was warm, funny, creative, and expressive. A teenager who loved fashion, music, and sharing pieces of her life on TikTok, where she found connection and community, especially as a transgender girl navigating a world that was not always kind to her. Like many young people, Brianna struggled with mental health challenges and bullying, but she was also resilient, hopeful, and supported deeply by her family, particularly her mother, Esther Ghey, who later described her daughter as loving, gentle, and full of promise, a child who deserved protection rather than betrayal. On the morning of February 11th, 2023, Brianna left home expecting to meet friends, something entirely ordinary, something no parent would fear, and she traveled to Culcheth Linear Park, a public green space where families walked dogs and children played, unaware that this ordinary setting would soon become the site of a tragedy that would grip the nation. What Brianna did not know was that two people she trusted, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe, both 15 at the time, had planned her death in advance, discussing it through messages that revealed not panic or impulsivity, but fascination with violence, a desire to kill, and an alarming emotional detachment. The plan was simple and terrifying in its calm execution. Lure Brianna to the park under the pretense of meeting as friends, isolate her, and attack her, and shortly after arriving, Brianna was assaulted and stabbed 28 times. She had been stabbed across her head, neck, chest, and back. The injuries were inflicted with a hunting knife brought to the scene by Eddie Ratcliffe, dying at the scene in broad daylight, while passers-by remained unaware of what had just happened in the wooded area. Her body was discovered shortly afterward, and the shock rippled quickly through the local community, then across the UK, as people struggled to understand how such an act could be committed by teenagers against a girl who had done nothing to deserve harm. Police moved swiftly, and within a day, Jenkinson and Ratcliffe were arrested. Their digital footprints, messages, search histories, and shared fantasies, painting a disturbing picture of premeditation. with conversations that included references to violent crimes, serial killers, and an apparent desire to see what killing would feel like. During the trial at Manchester Crown Court, the jury heard how Brianna had been selected not randomly, but deliberately, perceived as vulnerable, isolated, and unlikely to fight back. A detail that made the case especially haunting, because it revealed how predators, regardless of age, often seek those they believe society will not fully protect. The court also heard evidence that hostility toward Brianna's transgender identity played a role, though the judge later clarified that while transphobia was not the sole motive, it formed part of the broader pattern of targeting someone seen as different and defenseless. The trial itself was unprecedented in its intensity, not only because of the defendants' ages, but because of the sheer coldness revealed in their planning, with one defendant keeping a list of potential victims and the other expressing excitement rather than fear, forcing the public to confront uncomfortable questions about youth violence, online radicalization, and moral development. In December 2023, both defendants were found guilty of murder, and in February 2024, they were sentenced to life imprisonment, with minimum terms of 22 years for Scarlett Jenkinson and 20 years for Eddie Ratcliffe, a rare and severe sentence for offenders so young, reflecting the gravity of their actions and the court's assessment that this was not a momentary lapse, but a calculated killing. The judge described the murder as sadistic and emphasized the extreme harm caused not only to Brianna, but to her family and to society's sense of safety, stating clearly that age could not outweigh the seriousness of what had been done. Beyond the courtroom, Brianna's death ignited national conversations about the safety of transgender youth, the influence of violent online content, and how warning signs are often missed when young people's inner worlds are hidden behind screens and messages. And while public debate sometimes became polarized, Brianna's mother consistently brought the focus back to something simpler and more urgent: protecting children. Esther Ghey transformed her grief into advocacy, campaigning for improved mental health support, mindfulness programs in schools, and stricter conversations around smartphone use and harmful online material, arguing that young people are being exposed to content they are emotionally unequipped to process, with consequences that can turn deadly. Vigils for Brianna were held across the UK, with flowers, candles, and handwritten notes lining park fences and public squares, many bearing messages not just of mourning, but of apology. Apologies from a society that had not always made space for her to feel safe, accepted, or heard. Brianna Ghey's story resonates because it forces us to confront difficult truths: that violence can grow quietly, that cruelty does not always look monstrous at first glance, and that vulnerability, especially among marginalized youth, can be exploited in devastating ways. But it also reminds us that behind every headline is a human being, a teenager who laughed, dreamed, and trusted, and whose life was cut short by a betrayal she never saw coming. Today, Brianna is remembered not as a victim alone, but as a daughter, a friend, and a symbol of why empathy, awareness, and protection matter, because while justice has been served in a legal sense, the deeper challenge remains ensuring that no other child is left unprotected in the same way, and that Brianna's name stands not just for tragedy, but for change. Her life was taken far too soon, but her presence did not disappear. Brianna lives on in every voice that speaks her name with love, in every heart that chooses kindness over cruelty, and in every promise we make to create a world where no child is ever made to feel afraid for being who they are. She is remembered not for how she died, but for who she was, and she will never, ever be forgotten.